We can start. Okay, good. Krishna Book, Chapter 10. The deliverance of Nalikuvera and Manigriva. This Naliku, Nalakuvara and Manigriva. The story of the cursing of Nalakuvara and Manigriva and their deliverance by Krishna under the all blissful desire of the great sage Narada is here described. The two great demigods, Nalakuvara and Manigriva, were sons of the treasurer of the demigods. Kuvera who was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. By the grace of Lord Shiva, Kuvera's material opulences had no limit. As a rich man's son often become addicted to wine and women, so these two sons of Kuvera were also addicted to wine and sex. Once these two demigods, desiring to enjoy, entered the garden of Lord Shiva in the province of Kailash, on the bank of the Mandakini Ganges. There they drank much and engaged in hearing the sweet singing of the beautiful women who accompanied them in that garden of fragrant flowers. In an intoxicated condition, the two demigods entered the water of the Ganges, which was filled with lotus flowers, and there they began to enjoy the company of the young girls, exactly as a male elephant enjoys female elephants within the water. While they were thus enjoying themselves in the water, all of a sudden, Narada, the great sage, happened to pass by that way. He could understand that the demigods, Nalakuvara and Manigriva, were too much intoxicated and could not even see that he was passing. The young girls, however, were not so much intoxicated as the demigods, and they at once became ashamed at being naked before the great sage Narada. They began to cover themselves with all haste. The two demigod sons of Kuvera were so much intoxicated that they could not appreciate the presence of sage Narada and therefore did not cover their bodies. On seeing the two demigods so degraded by intoxication, Narada desired their welfare, and therefore he exhibited his causeless mercy upon them by cursing them. Because the great sage was compassionate upon them, he wanted to finish their false enjoyment of intoxication and association with young girls, and wanted them to see Lord Krishna face to face. He conceived of cursing them as follows. He said that their attraction for material enjoyment is due to an increase of the mode of passion. A person in the material world, when favored by the material opulence of riches, generally becomes addicted to three things: intoxication, sex, and gambling. Materially opulent men, being puffed up with accumulation of wealth, also become so merciless that they indulge in killing animals by opening slaughterhouses, and they think that they themselves will never die. Such foolish persons, forgetting the laws of nature, become overly infatuated with the body. They forget that the material body, even though very much advanced in civilization, up to the position of the demigods, will finally turn into ashes or stool. And while one is living, whatever the external condition of the body may be, within there is only stool, urine, and various kinds of worms. Thus, being engaged in jealousy and violence to other bodies, materialists cannot understand the ultimate goal of life, and without knowing this goal of life, they generally glide down to a hellish condition in their next life. Such foolish persons commit all kinds of sinful activities on account of the temporary body, and they are even unable to consider whether the body actually belongs to them. Generally, it is said that the body belongs to the persons who feed it. One might therefore consider whether the body belongs to one personally or to the master to whom one renders service. The master of slaves claims full right to the bodies of the slaves because the master feeds the slaves. It may also be questioned whether the body belongs to the father, who is the seed giving master of the body, or to the mother who develops the child's body in her womb. Foolish persons are engaged in committing all sorts of sins due to the misconception of identifying the material body with the self. But one should be intelligent enough to understand to whom the body belongs. A foolish person indulges in killing animals to maintain the body, but he does not consider whether the body belongs to him or to his father or mother or maternal grandfather. Sometimes the father gives his daughter in charity to a person with a view of getting back the daughter's child as a son. The body may also belong to a stronger man who forces it to work for him. Sometimes a slave's body is sold to a master, and from that day on, the body belongs to the master. And at the end of life, the body belongs to the fire because the body is given to the fire and burned to ashes. Or the body is thrown into the street to be eaten by the dogs and vultures. Before committing all kinds of sins to maintain the body, one should understand to whom the body belongs. Ultimately, it is concluded that the body is a product of material nature, and at the end, it merges into material nature. Therefore, the conclusion should be that the body belongs to the material nature. One should not wrongly think that the body belongs to him. To maintain a false possession, why should one indulge in killing? Why should one kill innocent animals to maintain the body? When a man is infatuated with the false prestige of opulence, he does not care for any moral instruction, but indulges in wine, women, animal killing. In such circumstances, a poverty stricken man is often better situated because a poor man thinks of himself in relation to other bodies. A poor man often does not wish to inflict injuries upon other bodies because he can understand more readily that when he himself is injured, he feels pain. Therefore, the great sage Narada considered that because the demigods Nalakuvara and Manigriva were so infatuated by false prestige, they should be put into a condition of life devoid of opulence. A person who has a pinprick in his body does not wish others to be pricked by pins. A considerate man in the life of poverty does not wish others to be also put into that condition. Generally, it is seen that one who has risen from a poverty stricken life and becomes wealthy creates some charitable institution at the end of his life so that other poverty stricken men might be benefited. In short, a compassionate poor man may consider others' pain and pleasures with empathy. A poor man is seldom puffed up with false pride, and he may be freed from all kinds of infatuation. He may remain satisfied by whatever he gets for his maintenance by the grace of the Lord. To remain in the poverty stricken condition is a kind of austerity. According to Vedic culture, therefore, the Brahmanas, as a matter of routine, keep themselves in a poverty stricken condition to save themselves from the false prestige of material opulence. False prestige due to advancement of material prosperity is a great impediment for spiritual emancipation. A poverty stricken man cannot become unnaturally fat by eating more and more, and on account of not being able to eat more than he requires, his senses are not very turbulent. When the senses are not very turbulent, he cannot become violent. Another advantage of poverty is that a saintly person can easily enter a poor man's house, and thus the poor man can take advantage of the saintly person's association. A very opulent man does not allow anyone to enter his house. Therefore, the saintly person cannot enter. According to the Vedic system, a saintly person takes the position of a mendicant, so that on the plea of begging something from the householder, he can enter any house. The householder who has usually forgotten everything about spiritual advancement because he is busy maintaining family affairs can be benefited by the association of a saintly person. There is a great chance for the poor man to become liberated through association with a saint. Of what use are persons who are puffed up with material opulence and prestige if they are bereft of the association of saintly persons and devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? The great sage Narada therefore thought that it was his duty to put those demigods into a condition where they could not be falsely proud of their material opulence and prestige. Narada was compassionate and wanted to save them from their fallen life. They were in the mode of darkness, and being therefore unable to control their senses, they were addicted to sex life. It was the duty of a saintly person like Narada to save them from their abominable condition. In animal life, the animal has no sense to understand that he is naked. But Kuvera was the treasure of the demigods, a very responsible man, and Nalakuvara and Manigriva were two of his sons, and yet they became so animalistic and irresponsible that they could not understand, due to intoxication, that they were naked. To cover the lower part of the body is a principle of human civilization, and when men or women forget this principle, they become no better than animals. Narada therefore thought that the best punishment for them was to make them immovable, living entities, or trees. Trees are, by nature's law, immovable. Although trees are covered by the mode of ignorance, they cannot do harm. The great sage Narada thought it fitting that although the brothers would be punished to become trees, by his mercy they would continue to keep their memory and be able to know why they were being punished. After changing the body, a living entity generally forgets his previous life, but in special cases, by the grace of the Lord, as with Nalakavara and Manigriva, one can remember. Sage Narada therefore contemplated that the two demigods should remain for 100 years in the time of the demigods in the form of trees, and after that they would be fortunate enough to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face by his causeless mercy, and thus they would be again promoted to the life of the demigods and become great devotees of the Lord. After this, the great sage Narada returned to his abode, known as Narayana Shrama, and the two demigods turned into trees, known as twin Arjuna trees. The two demigods were favored by the causeless mercy of Narada and given a chance to grow in Nanda's courtyard and see Lord Krishna face to face. Although child Krishna was bound up to the wooden mortar, he began to proceed towards the twin trees in order to fulfill the prophecy of his great devotee, Narada. Lord Krishna knew that Narada was his great devotee and that the trees standing before him as two Arjuna trees were actually the sons of Kuvera. I must now fulfill the words of my great devotee, Narada, he thought. Then he proceeded through the passage between the two trees. Although he was able to pass through the passage, the very large wooden, wooden mortar stuck horizontally between the trees. Taking advantage of this, with great strength, Lord Krishna began to pull the rope which was tied to the mortar. As soon as he pulled, the two trees, with all their branches and limbs, fell down with a great sound. Out of the broken fallen trees came two great personalities, shining like blazing fire. All sides became illuminated and beautiful by their presence. The two purified personalities immediately came before child Krishna and bowed down to offer their respects and prayers in the following words. Dear Lord Krishna, you are the original personality of Godhead, master of all mystic powers. Learned Brahmanas know very well that this cosmic manifestation is an expansion of your potencies, which are sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest. You are the original provider of the life, body, and senses of all living entities. You are the eternal God, Lord Vishnu, who is all pervading, the imperishable controller of everything, and you are eternal time. You are the original source of the cosmic manifestation, which is acting under the spell of the three modes of material nature goodness, passion, and ignorance. You are living as a supersoul in all the multiforms of living entities, and you know very well what is going on within their bodies and minds. Therefore, you are the supreme director of all activities of all living entities. But although you are in the midst of everything which is under the spell of the material modes of nature, you are not affected by such contaminated qualities. No one under the jurisdiction of the material modes can understand your transcendental qualities, which existed before the creation. Therefore, you are called the Supreme Transcendence. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of you, Lord Vasudev, the Supreme Brahman, who are always glorified by your personal internal potencies. In this material world, you make yourself known only by your different incarnations. Although you assume different types of bodies, these bodies are not part of the material creation. They are always full of the transcendental potencies of unlimited opulence, strength, beauty, fame, wisdom, and renunciation. In the material existence, there is a difference between the body and the owner of the body. But because you appear in your original spiritual body, there is no such difference for you. When you appear, your uncommon activities indicate that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. such uncommon activities are not possible for anyone in material existence. You, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cause the birth and death, as well as the liberation of the living entities, and you are full with all your plenary expansions. You can bestow on everyone all kinds of benedictions. O Lord, O source of all auspiciousness and goodness, we offer our respectful obeisances unto you. You are the all pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead, the supreme source of peace, the Supreme Personality in the dynasty of King Yadu. O Lord, our Father, known as Kuvara, the demigod, is your servant. Similarly, the great sage Narada is also your servitor, and only by their grace have we been able to see you personally. We therefore pray that we may always be engaged in your transcendental loving service by speaking only about your glories and hearing about your transcendental activities. May our hands and other limbs be engaged in your service, and our minds always be concentrated at your lotus feet, and our heads always bow down before the all pervading universal form of your Lordship. When the demigods, Nalakuvara and Manigriva, finished their prayers, the child Lord Krishna, the master and proprietor of Gokula, bound to the wooden grinding mortar by the ropes of the Yashoda, smiled and said, "It was already known to me that my great devotee, Narad Muni, had shown his causeless mercy by saving you from the abominable condition of pride due to possessing extraordinary beauty and opulence in a family of demigods. He has saved you from gliding down into the lowest condition of hellish life. All these facts are already known to me. You are very fortunate because not only were you cursed by him, but you had the great opportunity to see him. If someone is able by chance to see face to face a great saintly person like Narada, who is always serene and merciful to everyone, then immediately that conditioned soul becomes liberated. This is exactly like being situated in the full light of the sun. There cannot be any visionary impediment. Therefore, O Nalakuvara and Manigriva, your lives have now become successful because you have developed ecstatic love for me. This is your last birth within material existence. Now you can go back to your father's residence in the heavenly planets, and by remaining in the attitude of devotional service, you will be liberated in this very life. After this, the demigods circumambulated the Lord many times and bowed down before him again and again, and thus they left. The Lord remained bound up with ropes to the grinding mortar. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport, the 10th chapter of Krishna, the deliverance of Nalikavara and Manigriva.
Thank you very much. Om Jnana Timirantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Shapadantikam Pandeham Shri Guru Shri Judapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sarivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Purishana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lolita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vancha Kolpatarupyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari. Krishna Krishna. Opening. While I'm thinking of it, there's another group which has booked this room from 6:45 in the evening for the rest of the year. So we need to clear out promptly at our appointed time of 6:30 so that they can have free access. Now, we'll recall that Krishna had been tied by Jashodamai, and as he's tied to the grinding mortar, he's eyeing these twin Arjun trees, and as promised, we're now getting the background of these trees. They'd been, their names were Nalakubra and Manigriva. Thank you. And they were sons of Kubera, the great devotee of Lord Shiva, who is the treasurer of the demigods. And so they had limitless opulence. Like many rich men's sons today, we have multimillionaires whose sons have whatever they want, basically. So they were like that. And also typical for rich men's sons, well, what are we going to do? So intoxicants, women, maid eating, gambling. So they were in that way inclined or active. And the incident took place that one time they were in Lord Shiva's garden on the bank of the Mandakini Ganga. And they were drinking and they were enjoying, along with some young girls, and sporting with the girls in the water, naked. So they were quite stoned, as we say, and having a great time. And then Narada happened to pass that way, and the girls could see, oh, Narada Muni has come, so they hastily covered themselves. But Nalakuvara and Manigriva were so bombed that they didn't even, they thought, why should we cover? They didn't bother. So then Narada Muni became compassionate to them. I'd said yesterday he became angry, but here it says he became compassionate to them. And Prabhupada gives some depiction, I suppose it's in the text, of what happens by opulence. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam teya pradita chetasam vyavasayatmaka buddhi samadho navidhiyate. One can't be Krishna conscious when he's carried away by opulence and enjoyment. So one becomes proud, puffed up, as Prabhupada puts it, I have so much money, I have so much of this and that. And they kill animals, and they become over infatuated with the body. And then Prabhupada describes the body that they're infatuated with. Um, even if one is advanced to the point of being a demigod, the body is going to turn to ashes or stool. And while we're alive, we're walking around with this contraption which has inside of it stool and urine and what other nice things are mentioned here. Various kinds of worms. And one becomes envious of other living beings. What is that? Asomaya hatashachur nishe chaparanapi Ishroham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi adyo vijanavanasmi konyosti sadrishomaya yakshe tasyami bodhisha ityagana vimohitaha. The one becomes very proud. Idam madhyamaya labdham, I've already got this much. And imam prapshe manoratam, according to my clever schemes, I'll get more and more. Idam astidam apime bhavishyati punardanam. I've already murdered the competition, and I'll kill others also who dare to compete with me. Ishroham, I'm in control. Hambogi, I'm the enjoyer. Siddhoham balavan sukhi, I'm perfect, powerful, happy. Adyo vijanavanasmi, I'm surrounded by aristocratic family members. If I get in any trouble, I'll have my dad call the chief of police. I'll have my dad call the State Department. Konyosti sadrishomaya, who else is there like me? I'll perform sacrifices, I'll give charity. Yakshe dasyami bodhisha, this way I'll enjoy. Ityagana vimohita, in this way one is perfectly bewildered by ignorance. They don't consider who owns the body. They think, of course, they think they are the body, but their body is owned by, doesn't belong to them. And Prabhupada gives various potential owners. A slave may say, well, he's owned by somebody else. These days, with job shortages, if you get a job, you consider yourself lucky. And then you're owned for so many, well, officially 9 to 5, but then they want you to be available till 8 on your phone for whatever consultation. And they want you at some ungodly hour because it's because 7 time zones away, other people are awake. So you're owned practically, and if you like, you can quit, but then you'll lose everything, and we have 20 guys ready to take your place. So the body belongs to the people who feed it, or to the master to whom one renders service. If you're in the army, your body belongs to the army. They can send you wherever they want. Or your body belongs to the father because he gave the seed, or the mother because she nourishes it. And finally, sometimes to the maternal grandfather who gives his daughter to someone on the condition that he gets the child. Not much done in the West these days, but the Vedic system the end of life, the body belongs to the fire or to the vultures and the dogs. And for that body, supposedly mine, I commit all sorts of sinful activities. That's Prabhupada's summary here. And finally, the body belongs to material nature because it merges into material nature at the end. Prabhupada says that when one is infatuated by the false prestige coming from opulence, he doesn't care for any moral instructions. He just engages in women, wine, animal killing. So a poverty-stricken person is better. He's Prabhupada gave the story that there was a man whose wife had a fever and his maidservant had a fever. So the man called for the doctor. The doctor came, examined both patients. Then he reported that, "Sir, your wife will be okay. She just has a slight fever. But your maidservant is quite ill. She'll need serious attention. High fever." So the wife was hearing from upstairs, "I demand a recount. She's only the maidservant and I'm the wife and she has a higher fever than I do." Well, in this way, the more people are becoming degraded, the more they think that they're becoming advanced. So the poverty-stricken person is actually better off. What is it? The meek shall inherit the earth. Devoid of opulence, he becomes simple. He can't afford this kind of intoxicating enjoyment. Of course, he can afford intoxicants, but not on the grand scale of being supreme enjoyer of everything. He can be sympathetic to others because he knows how he's suffering or how he was suffering when he was poor. So he can feel empathy. And he generally, if he gets something, he's all right. He's grateful. I got something today. I got some food. I have a place to stay. So to be in poverty, Prabhupada said, is a kind of austerity. And the Brahmins therefore keep themselves voluntarily poor. Prabhupada mentioned that Chanakya Pandit, although effectively the prime minister of Chandragupta Maurya, was living in a hut because he was a Brahmin. He could have accepted all kinds of opulence, but he was living in a hut. And when his advice was questioned one time, he just left because he wasn't bought. He wasn't bought. So this is the position of the Brahmin, to be self-reliant and voluntarily poor. Even now there are Christian orders that keep themselves in poverty and keep themselves in poverty. As a voluntary austerity. And Prabhupada mentions also that the poor man can't eat so much, and so his senses are more controlled. The rich man goes on eating more and more opulent food, and his senses become more and more agitated. But the poor man live simply. And also the rich man keeps everyone out. He's got guards at the door. He lives in a luxury apartment where there's security forces are there screening everyone. No beggars allowed. But a poor man can't afford that kind of thing. Anyone can come to his house. So the saintly people come. And the saintly people have no access to the big, wealthy men. So therefore, Nard thought, as a saintly person, to deliver these two brothers who were so degraded, they were like animals. The animals don't cover their lower parts of their bodies. And Nalakuvara and Manigriva had come to that point. So Narada thought, all right, trees. And he cursed them to become trees. But by his mercy, they would be able to remember why they'd become trees. Generally, the rule is that a living entity forgets. The third canto, it's mentioned that the pains of birth are so intense that even though the child in the womb might remember his previous lives, on coming out, he forgets everything. But sometimes someone may remember. John Bharat was able to remember. And Nalakuvara and Manigriva, living as trees, could remember. And then they'd be, so you can imagine they're standing there for so long and remembering, oh, we did this and now we've become trees. So it was an opportunity for them to become purified. Then Narada went back to his ashram. The demigods stood there as Arjun trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. And so Krishna thought of, knowing the whole story, thought of pulling down these trees. They crawled between the trees. The mortar became stuck between them. Krishna tugged on the rope, and the trees fell. And Nalakuvara and Manigriva, now purified, came out, and beautiful, luminous persons, and offered prayers to the Lord, glorifying him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there's a lot in the prayers also, but I don't know that I'll gloss all of that. It's quite a lot. But their final prayers that we may always be engaged in your transcendental loving service by speaking only about your glories and hearing about your transcendental activities. May our hands and other limbs be engaged in your service, and our minds always concentrated at your lotus feet, our heads always bowed down before you. So then the Lord accepted their prayers and told them that they were very fortunate that Narad Muni had shown them his causeless mercy. If one gets the chance to see a great saint like Nard, then one can immediately be liberated from material existence. The Lord said that now your lives have been successful because you've developed ecstatic love for me. This will be your last birth. Now you can go back to your father's home, and by staying in the attitude of devotional service, you'll be liberated in this very life. So Nalakuvara and Manigriva circumambulated the Lord many times and then left for their heavenly residence, and Krishna stayed there tied to the grinding mortar. All right, any questions, comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, we see a lot of change of this two sons of this Daksha because of the long punishment or because we mostly hear in the Bhagavatam that change can only be happened by devotional service, not by punishment. Even Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukdev Goswami also this question. So we see this drastic change, big change in these two persons, because of long punishment or any devotional service.
Were they, did this change come about in their consciousness because of punishment? Generally, we hear that one changes because of devotional service. They changed because they got the mercy of Narad Muni. First, Lavamacha Sadhu Sange Sarvashadiva. Just by a moment's association, one can achieve all perfection. So they saw Narada, and Narada gave them what seemed like a curse, but was actually a blessing. And they had a lot of time to contemplate their mistake, and also to think of Krishna. They could remember this is the foolish thing that we did, and they could also have some hope that we've been blessed that we'll see Krishna. So they're thinking of Krishna, thinking of Krishna.
So Maharaj, you can a little bit explain the role of punishment to change a person.
Punishment can be good. This is a kind of punishment. Punishment doesn't mean that we hate someone and we just want to see him suffer. It's meant to purify someone or elevate someone. So often in material context, it doesn't work. You throw someone in jail. He spends the next 10 years of his life in the association of similar criminals and modes of deep ignorance and passion. Learns how to be even more of a criminal than he was, and so on. There's no program for actual purification. So that kind of punishment often proves ineffective. But here, Narad Muni gave them what seemed to be a punishment, but it was aimed at their elevation, their liberation from material existence. So punishment properly conceived can be a blessing. Narad Muni considered, and by being bereft of all opulence, it will be good for them, cure their intoxication. What seems like punishment can actually be just like the doctor says you have to fast for 3 days. That's punishment. No, actually, it's a blessing that you'll be cured of your disease. Something else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was thinking the same thing about this punishment being a blessing, because there are devotees that pray to take birth in Vrindavan as grass so that Krishna can crawl on them, and these trees get to watch Krishna crawl around and play and observe him, which is already such a blessing. I was wondering whether they also got similar blessings before Krishna's appearance, when they were just observing the residents of Vrindavan.
When they were
just observing the residents of Vrindavan, Nanda Maharaj,
Nalakuvara and Manigriva?
as trees in this.
Oh, I see. As trees.
Yeah.
Sure, if they were in the to be in Vrindavan under any circumstances means to be in touch with Krishna. Just that they're standing on the holy land of Vrindavan is purifying. And then they're in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. So Krishna is there, and the devotees are there, and chanting of Hare Krishna or Krishna's qualities and pastimes and so on is going on. So sure, they were fortunate. Yeah. I remember I was during some difficult days in our society, I was serving in Europe, and I had some responsibilities there and some position, but I was a little bit out of tune with the authorities of the time. So the main authority called me in and said, if you weren't serving here, what would you do? Which was very considerate of him, actually. You know, he didn't just say, this town isn't big enough for the two of us. Said, if you weren't serving here, what would you do? And it was 1985, and Lokanath Maharaj was leading this Padayatra party that was traveling all over India on foot. So I said, well, I'd go on Padayatra. So, okay, here's your ticket. And later on, some devotees said to me, yeah, we heard how they threw you out. And I said, no, it was a blessing. It was like the best years of my life, best 2 years of my life, year and a half, traveling around to all these places in the association of devotees and chanting Hare Krishna and skipping a lot of the unhappy times that others were subjected to. So it may have seemed like you're being thrown out, but it was great. So sometimes it seems that we're being punished, but it's actually a blessing. Prabhupada had a secretary who was traveling with him, and Prabhupada basically dismissed him and sent him to be in charge of preaching and book distribution in part of North Europe. And the devotee thought he was, being thrown out, but actually he was being given great opportunity for service, which he later appreciated as Prabhupada's mercy. So things work that way. Yeah, Gopinath.
This is just a comment on the discussion we had earlier as to why Nalakuvara and Manigriva don't attain liberation but have to go back to the... So Prabhupada in his purport to the verse, he writes in the Bhagavatam, as soon as one sees a sadhu, one naturally becomes free. Nonetheless, persons who are too much offensive, who commit Vaishnava aparadhs or offenses to a sadhu, will have to take some time before being rectified. So this is why.
Why? You can ask, why didn't they? Now you can go home to the heavenly planets. Heavenly planets? We want to go back to Godhead. Now you go back to the heavenly planets, and then after that you can come. And Gopinath Acharya was citing Prabhupada's explanation. Because of aparadhs, they couldn't at once go. Yeah. Yes.
Maharaj, most of the time, this confusion remains like when anybody is cursed, so he gets a new body, like another form. So what about the previous body? Like death of that body, or like suppose this.
I couldn't follow.
Like when anybody is cursed, like by some saintly person, so he gets new body. Like suppose these two persons
Doesn't have to. There are different kinds of curses. being cursed to leave your body is not the only curse. Other things can, saintly persons have a wide range of curses to invoke.
Because when this curse is completed, then they come to their old body again. So like suppose that most of them we have seen many pastimes when this they are liberated from that curse, then they get their old body again, old form again. So for a long time that body remains. So what happened actually?
I don't think I follow the.
Because many times we see when anybody is cursed, then he gets new
He
body,
gets a new body.
and then what about the old body?
First of all, it's not so that anyone who's cursed gets a new body. All sorts of curses are there. Not only that, but okay, he gets a new body. So then what happens to the old body? Old body is finished. And then you can get a new body like the old one. That can be. But not like they're keeping the old body on ice somewhere till your punishment is over. No, not necessary.
Maharaj, one more question is about this memory. Memory we see most of the time we hear after death. Death means end of the all memories of that life. So, but we see many pastimes are there when Krishna liberate them from that cursed position, and they immediately remember they tell about old story how they are cursed. So, in every case, when anybody is cursed, their memory remains.
No, curse doesn't mean that automatically you remember everything, but that's a blessing. Narada gave them the blessing that they would remember. Jayadvaita got the blessing that he would remember. But it's not necessarily so that everyone who's cursed in this or that way remembers.
Because whenever they are liberated from that curse position, then immediately they tell about the story we done that for
How many?
most of the time.
You seem to have the idea that there's so many instances. I can think of Jayadvaita, I can think of this one. What other ones do you have in mind? Riga. That's 3. You know of any others?
One crocodile was there from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when touched, what was his name?
Junior Haridas?
No, Mahaprabhu went touched his feet on that crocodile and immediately he was a demigod. What's his name?
Yeah, the Narada Muni, Nanda Maharaj was swallowed by a snake. And all right. Not necessarily even that it's like death, but just boom, you're a snake now. Not that you even have to die, but right now now you become like this. So they're allowed to remember. Krishna's blessing.
So in lower species, they remember all their past memories?
No, they don't remember anything.
Yeah.
What do they remember? Except even in this species, we don't remember. What to speak of the lower species. Someplace in 3rd canto we were just reading, quoted from Shastra, that in the modes of ignorance and passion, the animals don't remember anything. All they know is food is here, food is there, food is here, food is there. That's the quality of animal life. They don't, people ascribe to them all sorts of wisdom. Animals are supposed to be so wise. They know where food is. They can find sex easily enough. They find a place to sleep. But they don't meditate on their previous lives. And now I've become a cockroach because of this or that. They're just doing their cockroach thing.
Because sometimes you see, like we hear about the dogs and they remember dog in dog species and in
I
this species.
think you'd help me a lot by a 20% reduction of speed. If you would speak 20% more slowly,
We see
I wouldn't ask you to repeat so often.
in dogs. We sometimes people say like when the dogs they remember all past memories. Something.
Dogs, people say that dogs remember all their past memories. Who says that?
Something we hear some from person.
Hmm?
Not exactly from any we can say
Just somebody has said that.
authentic sources, but like sometimes we hear.
So do we have to take seriously what we hear? Somebody says the dogs are great sages. Do we have to believe them? The lower species, the Shastra says they forget. That's good enough. We don't need more. What other people say doesn't count. Dogs. They remember where they buried bones. Something else? Yes.
Hare Krishna. I have a question. I think it's from Science of Self-Realization, but it could be from the Journey of Self-Discovery. I'm not sure. Anyway, in chapter 1, it's the introduction to the book. At the end, it says publishers, from publishers.
Mm.
So, yeah, that might be Science of Self-Realization. Anyway, it says that when a child is born from the womb of a non-devotee family, then they forget Krishna. But if they're born from the womb of a devotee family, then they don't forget Krishna, so it's more favorable. And I was wondering how we can properly explain that to new people if we're reading with them or something. Is it because of the
The
environment?
child in the womb doesn't generally remember anything, devotee or non-devotee, but sometimes a fortunate child remembers this is the situation. The child born in a devotee family is fortunate because he's born in a devotee family, so he'll hear, even within the womb, he hears Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. He can hear the pastimes of Krishna as Krishna. Shukadev Goswami was hearing, and others hear the pastimes of Krishna. Then when they come out, they hear chanting. Even if they're born in, say, a Islamic family. One priest, Muslim priest, was telling me that we believe that from the breast of the mother, the child should hear the name of Bismillah. From the very beginning, he should hear the name of God. And if he's born in an atheist family or an atheistic country, he should never hear anything about this nonsense except to hear it disparaged and proven foolish. So according to karma, one may be born, and even we see materially, someone's born in a judge's family, he has a good opportunity to become a judge. Someone's born in this or that family gets what you get in the family. If you're born in a poor man's family in a hut somewhere, you get that kind of environment, that kind of life. And if you're born in a professor's family or a family of intellectuals, you get an intellectual environment, a big library full of books and so on. So what is the difficulty to understand?
Okay, so if I understood you correctly, like either way, usually, even if they're born from the womb of a devotee, they're going to forget Krishna, but Krishna will be present in that environment through...
In the 6th chapter, Labhate Purvadehikam, automatically he becomes attracted. Doesn't matter, he may have forgotten. Just like we see the kirtan party comes through the street and so many people are passing by, but some little kid is tugging on the hand of his mother or father. He wants to go be near the kirtan party. And why? What so? By good fortune from his previous life. Or someone's just immediately attracted by the books, immediately attracted by the devotees. The word avasha, helplessly, automatically he's attracted. Or sometimes we see that someone who just doesn't feel inclined to material life. It's like, I don't get it. Why are they all doing this and this and this and this? Can't understand it. And good fortune from his previous life.
So the attraction is stimulated from the time of birth.
Mm-hmm.
That attraction is like stimulated from the time of birth, like
Whenever. It comes out when he's 6, or it comes out when he's 12, or it comes out at some point. But it's revived from his previous life.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This section about self-awareness and animalistic life, that they're not aware that they're naked and all of that.
So I'm having a hard time today. Why is that? Is it me? I can't understand anyone today. So,
I'll try again, like this.
okay.
So the section that we just read about animalistic life and self-awareness of your body, it reminds me a little bit about the Bible, where Adam and Eve, they take the apple and suddenly they're aware that they are naked. So I was wondering, with this new knowledge, or this knowledge that is given here, how could we give a Vedic perspective or Vedic interpretation on this story of Adam and Eve?
Well, gee, we missed Prithu Prabhu's class a few days ago where he talked about this. He didn't really go into the explanation. He just said that it's profound and allegorical. I'm not much of a biblical commentator, but in general, from an overview, Adam and Eve were disobedient. They were told, it's all yours, but not this. And then by bad association, they got the wrong advice and thought, why should we, what's with it that we're not able to take this? If we take this, then we'll be, God must be withholding this from us so that we don't become like him. So then they thought, let's do it. So that's Bahirmukh Jiva, Anadi Bahirmukh Jiva. In the, where is that actually? Prem Vivarta or Chaitanya Charitamrita. Since time immemorial, we're looking away from Krishna. Or we're disobedient to Krishna. That's our problem. Then Krishna says, do this, and we want to be independent. No, I'll do that. So the basic storyline supports our philosophy. I don't know that I want to go deeper than that, or that I'm equipped to go deeper than that. Any biblical scholars here? Okay. I wrote a commentary on one book of the Bible. I'm pretty well versed in that one. Once I'm outside the boundaries of that one book, I don't know more than anyone else.
So if we read the Bhagavatam, we can read it also as an analogy, or can read it as absolute. There are different ways of seeing the story.
Well, there's all sorts of ways of reading it, some of them better than others.
Yeah.
But Srila Prabhupada, some things are explicitly allegorical. The Puranjana history is explicitly allegorical. And there are other places, the forest of material enjoyment, explicitly allegorical. Where it's not explicitly allegorical, Srila Prabhupada generally takes it as literal. That this is what the Bhagavatam says, we take it as history.
Because you said the Bible, that story, it's allegorical. How do we know that?
That's what Prithu Prabhu said.
Oh, okay.
I'm just Sri Prithu Vacha, I'm just repeating.
Okay.
And of course, it's Jewish literature, so the rabbis have to have 142 explanations for everything. They're great thinkers, so they look at things from many points of view. But again, I'm not well versed in their tradition or commentaries. Okay, we are at 20 after, and as mentioned, we need to be fastidious about being out of here by about 6:30, so that the next group can have the room at 6:45. So we'll stop here, and we'll carry on tomorrow. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Kirtan, yes, Kirtan. Kirtaniya Sada. Okay, and amidst all these many things, where did my little bottle go? I'd like to give me a little shot of water here. And later we'll find what we're missing. Whoever.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavani Paschachare Shatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi, Ghora Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Ashtotar Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kunigiri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamana Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari. And you're leaving tomorrow, yeah? Gopinatha Charja and Rup Sanatan are back to Europe tomorrow, so we wish them a good journey. Hare Krishna. And you're also going tomorrow. Okay. Well, we wish you a good journey. Hare Krishna. And thank you for attending while here. And you're coming back. And they're also coming back. So we're all coming back. Hare Krishna. And they'll remember when they were last year.